not looking at my screen. That's funny. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's live feed in and around peer support for peer supporters. And I don't know how many people, are going to be on this today. So I just, I wanted to kind of just use these times to start sharing the kind of discussions that have occurred in some of the like peer support for peer supporters groups this last week. So forgive me for being a bit scattered. I've actually just been on a 2-hour Zoom call with parents talking about alienation in their experience when they've gone through separations, and like one party or the other have created a place where kids maybe find it difficult to go and stay with the other parent, and so that was very sobering. Thinking about how as humans we can create such havoc in the lives of another adult, but also the lives of kids, in terms of when we're upset and we're angry with another person and we kind of pull third parties into those discussions, those ways of being that creates such distress for all. And, it was interesting, that group, because it had women who were on, talking about their experience of fathers. We had fathers talking about their experience of mothers. And, I was saddened that those kind of things occur, and that we can't put things aside for the benefit of our kids as humans. So I just, in the spirit of peer support, I wanted to share what was kind of sitting on top for me with that. And what I want to do today is just share some of the kind of conversations that have occurred over this week in those peer support for peer supporters forums. I'd also like to throw some questions out. So I see we have a few people on right now, and I would love to throw the question out. And I love that Charlotte's watching, because she'll probably type it up as if I'm saying it. But I'd love to ask the question about what's on top for you this week that you're looking for some support for in this conversation, because I can go anywhere with these conversations. And while I'm waiting to hear your thoughts on what's on top for you, or anything you want to kind of have me have a conversation about, I will start to share some of the conversations this week. So the beauty of the free peer support for peer supporters calls this week have been the mix of people on those calls. So during the last week we've had, or maybe the last 2 weeks, I think, how long has this been going, is we've had people from a 911 line who are doing peer support for other 911 people. We've had a pilot who's in a peer-to-peer project with pilots, and they've been, going through a lot as well. We've had people who are working in mental health services. We've had people who are working in a large health service doing peer-to-peer for the health workers. And as you can imagine, there's a lot happening in that field now. And I actually want to give a big shout out to Eastern Health in Newfoundland. They were training peer supporters, in February, and they were going to go live at some point in the future. And they've just had to send that out and have people going live right now. And so they've kind of stepped up and done that, because Newfoundland, as with every other area of the world, is increasing their cases of COVID-19. And so it's the place about how we're supporting people through that process. Hey, MJ, nice to see you on the call. So some of the, those eclectic mixes of people, when we've had those conversations in those peer-to-peer support groups, like people have been talking about very similar issues. So, some of the things that people have talked about is, people are starting to feel kind of more anxiety in the world. They're starting to feel there's more cases of depression. And I just want to, whatever my political whatever my political feelings are, I do want to say it was courageous of the Manitoba Premier to come out and talk about having depression. I'm not someone that can vote in this country, so I'm not getting on the bandwagon of that. But I think if every single person that was or had in the past dealt with mental health or addiction issues came out, we would find it's everywhere. And I just want to say, I'm seeing a couple of people join. Carolyn, hi. Simone, mate, from Timmins, haven't talked to you in forever. Cool to see you. So I think one of the things I've been talking about with peer supporters as we go through this last week in particular, with the drastic increase in numbers and processes of what's occurring and deaths and whatever country we're in, this is occurring, right? And I'm saying, and I will continue to say, that people who have experienced mental health and addiction issues over time are an asset to our community right now. So there's many people in the community who haven't experienced these kind of feelings in the past. So we get to, as people with our own experience, we can share how we've got through some of those things in the past. Hey, Linda. And we are of value. So I see on the news, and I've talked to the peer supporters about this, I see on the news we've often got health professionals talking about it. What I want to say to you guys, part of what I'm doing as my self-care is actually reaching out to the media saying, please talk to us who have dealt with this for a number of years. Please start hearing this. Please start having conversations with us who have got through it. Because the resiliency factors that we get through those things and have for years is something that the rest of community could learn from. So I'm throwing it up for those people who are on here, what are the resilience factors that you've used in the past that you might want to share with the general community? Throw it up in the chat box here or go out and start talking. One of the things I've been doing whenever I'm out. So, people may have noticed from some of my posts, I'm going out, and I'm walking the dog. And although there's huge physical distancing, I can yell and say hello to people. And we start having a conversation about the world now, and people start to talk about their feelings. And we get to share from a peer perspective because, everyone's going through this at the moment. I can't see a single person in the world right now that's not impacted. I've been talking with my mates in Palau, and last time I talked a couple of weeks ago, a couple of days ago, they still didn't have a case, but they were still concerned about was it coming, who was coming in, who was flying in, and what they were going to do if that occurred, because they're a very small nation with a very small hospital. And so I think I keep saying to peer supporters, I keep saying to anyone, if you've experienced mental health, depression, anything like that in the past, get out there and share how you've got through it. Start talking in grocery stores. I've been chatting in grocery stores. Sam, that humour, watching comedy shows, supports. That's part of why I've got my 4 p.m. Central District time fit and fun for mental health. We do something silly. I do something silly. And, Twister in the apartment, complex. welcome room, whatever you call it, waiting room, I don't know, when you first, entrance, my brain today. I did the, exercise with ties yesterday on the door. I've done running around the kitchen bench and then talking about something. So humour for me is one of those big things that's holding me. The ability to do these, the ability to do those 5 minutes a day is a place that's supporting. I see Linda talking about telling people that it's okay to be afraid. Totally. It's okay for us to share whatever those feelings are. And I think it's really important. Like in the past, I know, when I've shared stuff about happening with my mental health, we've heard people in the community go, well, just buck up, like just deal with it. What's your problem? Just get over it. And I think one of the things that's happening now, as a society, we're seeing that it's not about just saying buck up, because the rest of the community are now realising saying just get over it, just buck up doesn't cut it. And so we have this beautiful place to share the kind of things that are useful. Laura, I'm just seeing you've been self-quarantining, and the phone calls from family or friends, it's finding those happy things, right? One of the big things I've been saying to everyone at the moment, it's not social distancing. It's social connectedness in spite of physical distancing. And I want us to really think about that messaging. It's about how do we get creative about keeping social connectedness. Now, that might be phone calls. That might be doing this. You guys actually interacting with me, brings a peace to my heart that I get I'm not alone, because I live alone. Well, apart from with Sleepy down here. And normally I do my Zoom calls without her in the room because she has a very loud snore. You may hear it. But one of those things is even she's been impacted, right? And sometimes we forget that. Animals have energy. Animals have a sense. That's why they're great emotional support animals. And she has been much more clingy, right? If I'm in here with the door shut, she's laying outside the door. So I decided that you guys could just hear her snoring if you needed to, because she wanted to be close in this environment. I'm sure we have pets that are feeling the world, a little bit out there. One of the things I heard this last week is the number of adoptions of pets have gone up. One of the concerns I have with that is that we don't have a huge increase of animals being given back at the end of this when people go back to their regular kind of life and supports and stuff. But pets can be a great source here of supporting us and being with us along that journey when we're isolated. I know that whole discussion of feeling isolated, feeling like we're alone physically. And I know for me, I was talking in one of the peer support groups the other day about I'm on Zoom calls all the time. I have these, I have peer supporter calls, I have friends on Zoom. I've done virtual drinks with people. And there's times I still get up and I go, I miss that human touch. Being able to just touch someone. And, the other day I talked about that on the Fit and Fun for Mental Health little snippet. And it was one of those things that people were throwing all these hugs and loves and I was watching it on the Facebook feed. And then when I went to disconnect, my Facebook feed wouldn't let me. And so I physically had to close the app down because the finish button wasn't working. And I think, I don't know people's beliefs, but I think the universe knows that we need different things in this time. So it's for me one of the things I've chatted about in all of the fit and fun for mental health little 5-minute segments is finding our happy place. And I've been talking about that with the peer supporters in those calls about what is it that brings us happiness? Is it those 5-minute calls with family and friends? Is it the humour? For me, it's taking Rue, her name's Rue, as in kangaroo. Is it taking Rue out to the park, and even though I'm not close to people, I can see other people, or taking her down out in the apartment complex. And, I do silly things like I have this tiny little balcony. Really, it's a door with a, some screening on it that doesn't let me fall off because I'm on the 4th floor. But sometimes I will go out there when I see people in the yard and I'll be yelling out, hello. And some people will yell back and some people won't. But I think it's finding what it is for your happy place. And part of that for me is just being silly, right? And I'm being conscious of that when I yell out over the balcony, hello, or I do one of those silly little fun and fit for mental health, or, I've been doing lip syncing, but realised last night I can't keep doing that. I've been doing lip syncing videos and putting them on Facebook and Instagram, but I can't keep doing that either because the sound is closing off if I've got a song in the background, like copyright stuff. So I'm going to look at doing a lip sync battle on Zoom for anyone that wants to join, and just allowing our silliness to come out. So it is part of that. Being however we need to be. And I saw Linda throw up earlier about allowing people to feel the way they feel. And I've just seen Linda talking now about feeling sad that, we can't hug each other. One of the things I have now, so I'll share, I did a lip syncing thing the other day, hello to my little unicorn, right? And so I also have this, I have my dog, I have that, funny little unicorn or a pillow that I can just hug, which isn't the same, but sometimes in my mind I kind of think about that piece. I see Simone talking about spontaneity or something. Yeah, just being able to go, oh, I want to be silly, I want to dance, or I want to reach out differently, or I want to yell out to a friend and say hi. I know that a friend and I have decided that we're going to do a virtual dancing. And so what we've talked about is one of us putting YouTube salsa lessons up, and each of us dancing our part to it, even though we can't be in the same place. And I get it's not exactly the same, right? But it's how do we get creative about that connectedness in this time of, and I'm going to say it because I'm a person with a mental health issue, in that time of madness and craziness and uncertainty and, oh my God, I don't know what the future holds. And I just see Sam talking about gratitude. That is one of the things at the end of each of the peer support for peer supporters calls that I do, is I ask people what they're grateful for in that moment, just that moment, because we might have seconds of I'm grateful for this, and then it's oh, I'm not, I'm in a state of I'm sad. It's the place where I talked about, the other morning I was sad I couldn't physically touch someone, but I was really grateful for that I got to be on this type of call where I could talk to people. And I can't talk to people exactly, but I can see people's comments and engage the best I can in this. And, I've had someone say to me recently, and this is the humbling piece for me. I had someone reach out, and I may even cry here, right? This is about vulnerability in this environment. I've had a few people reach out, but one person really spoke to me, and they said they live alone, and every morning they get up and they feel like they don't want to be around anymore. And they remember that at 4 o'clock, I'm going to be doing a 5-minute fit and fun for mental health. And they said their happy place is sitting on their recliner watching that. And so, you know, one of the things is we don't know if those little actions that we take is having that huge impact on someone's life. That is life-changing. That is that peer support of being able to share those things that we're going through and being able to talk about we're all in this together. I've talked to peer workers this week about we can't say, or hopefully we don't say, it's going to be okay, because we don't know what exactly it's going to look like, right? We don't. And you know what I've said to that person is, maybe it's about saying, I don't know what this looks like as it continues. I don't know what the future looks like, but we're in this together. The world is in this together. For the first time ever, the entire world, even thinking about world wars, right? Not every single country was impacted. Every single country's in this together right now. And so as 7 billion people, we're trying to work through this together. And so I'm grateful for the fact, it's going to sound weird, but we're all struggling together. That we're all trying to make sense of this madness together. And there are amazing people working their butts off in this community, trying to look at vaccines, and I hear this little happy virus keeps mutating, which is, one of the challenges. There's people doing that. There's people on the front lines. Healthcare professionals are getting sick doing this. And they're still doing it. And we've got people that, legislatively looking at, government-wise, trying to look at how do they support people. We've got the world of, people working in grocery stores and cleaners and doing their bit. And I've got goosebumps. I don't know if you can see them, maybe not. The hair standing up. Because for once, it's not the world of CEOs and stuff who earn the massive dollars. And I'm not talking anything about who earns what and stuff. But the world is being held together by many, many people, and many, many people who are often the people that aren't acknowledged as much. And every time, I go into the grocery store now, I am saying, hey, how's it going? I get this probably stressful, you're probably getting yelled at times, and people engaging conversations. That's peer support. And I watch grocery store people talking to each other about sharing their experiences. And, I can see a couple of my mates coming on, Robyn, Karen, hi. And Robyn talking about scared for what's in front of us. And that's the place, right? We're all kind of uncertain about our future. And one of the things we talked about on Friday in our peer-to-peer support call was, hold on while I cough, I do not have COVID-19. I've not been out there. If I've got it, it's in my own apartment. But I get dry talking, right? But one of the things that someone shared the other day is that life's uncertain always, right? And we don't know if we just get in our car generally and go for a drive that, we're going to have an accident and something may happen, or someone may get stage 4 cancer or whatever that is. And so I think it's ramped up now that we're seeing it all the time on the media. This is the Blake Shelton kind of cup. No, it's got iced tea and electrolytes in it. But it is that place of we don't know generally, But now we've got this in our face all the time. So part of that is remembering to, like, how much do we want to keep watching that? I know for me, I've taken time to step away from the media. So yesterday I probably watched it for 5 minutes because I went, it keeps saying the same thing and it's scary. And I need to actually take a step back and do some of the things for me that kind of work, that finding my happy place bit. Simone was talking about being in touch with friends that you haven't been in touch with for a long time. Simone and I met many years ago now in an airport and just had a conversation, stayed in touch. Simone came out to New Zealand and visited. And like, we haven't talked in forever, but seeing her today, like, gave me the biggest smile. I was talking to someone from Timmins the other day. I was like, oh my God, I have to reach out. And, you know, my brother and I, like, all my family are in Australia, apart from one niece who's in Calgary. And I now know I cannot get to them. No matter what happens, I can't get to them because they're not allowing planes in. Even if I could work out how to go somewhere on compassionate grounds, you know, if we have border issues come in and they stop people crossing borders, I still can't get to them because the border doesn't matter. The border's ocean. But my brother and I, we haven't talked in much, probably 5 minutes. We talked in like 5 years because we had a fight over something silly. He's calling every single day for like 45 minutes and just talking. And he's talking about the economic situation because that's his bag. And I'm just rolling with it. And so, again, it's that place of allowing people to be wherever they are with whatever that conversation is, to just be. And I see Heather talks about being grateful for, like, being able to get in a tub and soak with hot and clean water. Yeah, because there's people that don't have that. There's people that don't have access to water. And so being grateful for those things, not saying, oh, woe is those people, and not saying, oh my God, I'm so amazing, I've got all this, but just remembering those little things that we can be grateful for. And thanks, Andrea, for saying that. Really happy to just, I think it's about just being vulnerable, right? So I keep talking to people when they're on those calls about, like, being who we are. So, you know, the other day in one of the Fit and Fun mental health kind of pieces, I talked about like feeling tired, and I laid on the couch and I closed my eyes for a second and I just went, I'm tired, because the privilege that Charlotte and I have is our business is increasing through this, and peer support is increasing. And that's why I keep saying, stand up, tell your politicians, tell your local member why peer support is so important here. It's not all about necessarily paying for it this time, because and it is in the same breath. But I think we need to start standing up as a community and saying we're of value. Here's why we're of value to the whole community, what we have to offer. But I shared that I was tired. I shared the other day I was talking to peer workers in Australia at midnight on Friday night for a couple of hours, that my heart hurts that I can't get to the people I know. Like, even in Canada, I can't drive across to Calgary to get to my niece because, you know, there's talk of them closing down borders. I don't know if they will, but I also know that I need to be here. There's things I have to do here, and I've told my niece I'll like try and get there if she needs, and she's got lots of support, and I know she won't, but or she might, but it's allowing ourselves to share those pieces. It's not overtaking me in those things. It's not overtaking me in those calls, but being vulnerable and sharing allows us to connect to people in a really different way. I think, Jane, are you talking about don't like to watch too much of the media. I can't see all the comments in there. Oh yeah, switching off the news. It is one of those things, right? We're bombarded with woe is me stuff, and we have some snippets of like cool conversations, but it's important for all of us, you know, to find what works for us. And I'm trying to look at different people's comments here. That's why I'm looking down, sorry. But it is that place about being in conversations with someone if you're out walking the dog, or if you look out the window and see someone. I know a peer service in Kenora, so the peer service of CMHA in Kenora have, you know, they've gone virtual, but then we also know there's people that like can't get on the phone because they don't have a phone. So that service has decided to, like they've got their peer workers, they've got one going into their centre and cooking, and then going out and going round to like the houses of people and dropping off a meal. So they drop it at the door and they step away, and sometimes they have conversations through a window, because people don't have a phone or don't have a computer. And so it is that place where we get to start being creative like that. No one said we can't chat through a window. That's keeping our distance. We can stand back from the house and yell. Use your outside voice for a change. You know, it is that. And like, again, I want to bring home the point that when we're like being wherever we're at, it's, I try to remember that nothing in my life has ever been secure, because I don't know what's going to happen in the next moment, that I can be in this moment. And there's times that I'm not in this moment and, you know, I'll lay on the couch and have a cry. And that's okay. And for me, I go, I can do that for a certain time, and then I'm going to get up and get on with it. So it is those things. And, you know, I'm seeing people being in conversation, like Joanne High, conversation with two friends on Messenger. I just see Charlotte's doing my comments because I can't. Obviously, I'm holding the phone. But I went round to a friend's place the other day and I bought flowers for her. She's in isolation because she's just come back from Florida, and I put flowers on her doorstep. Obviously, I use gloves holding the flowers, put them down, and I called her and said, step to your window. And she actually, I stepped back from the door and she opened her door, and we had a conversation that way. And Rue, my dog, went up and said hello to her, and then like came back and hopped in the car and stuff. But it was the place of, how do we get creative with that? How do we find those little pieces, those little gems? And given that I'm not secure about anything, like I don't know what the next moment holds. You know, I lived in New Zealand for a long time, and we had earthquakes all the time. And some were big, like I was in the last big one in New Zealand, and there was a point when the earth was shaking and I was like, this is bigger than normal, and do I really know if this is going to be still here? Is this house going to slide off the side of the hill? So, you know, I'm hearing everything about the uncertainty with COVID, and I am talking about how I don't often know about things. I'm just hearing so much more about it. And I see Andrea, like, hi Andrea, I do remember you. You know, they're doing their stuff one-to-one in person, and moved it to virtual and telephone, and being creative if people don't have phones. And I'm just trying to think of some other things I just had in my head I wanted to say, and I've just had a blank. What? Oh, Andrea, soil pots, bulbs, gardens, like those kind of things are like amazing. You know, I know Simone, I don't know if you're still doing that and if you're still on, but you know, Simone's a landscaper, and I guess that's a little quieter at this time outside, but maybe it's doing it inside, and I'm looking at some notes I had to talk through, and I still forgot what I was going to say. But it is those places of beauty. It's finding the beauty in the world today. And what I want to say is some of the beauty I'm seeing is something Charlotte and I have been talking about forever. And, you know, we on video, like in October, working in the oil and gas industry, about the getting our human back on, right? One of the things I see is people connecting again in a different way. And I think we got super busy in this world. Like, we had emails on our phones. We had every second we had to be available. And the expectation was work, 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 work. Do. And I know for me, I was flying all over the world. And, you know, in February, I was home for 4 days. And it was interesting because in February, my schedule opened up in Manitoba for 4 months. So I'm going to be home. Well, I'm probably home anyway, but my schedule before all of this went wild was to be home for 4 months. So I'm like, were the gods looking after me? Were the spirits doing it? Like, I don't know, but I was like, oh, it gives me a chance to slow down. And now I think the reality is this has given everyone a chance to slow down. Like everyone, to just take a step back and go, what's really important to us? And I think it's a gift, right? I know it's weird to say this is a gift in the midst of all this. But, you know, I've talked to people who have talked about their near-death experiences, and they've come back from that and gone, what's really important to me? And what's really important is life and connecting. And like, people have changed careers and done stuff differently. And I'm not saying that we're going to be doing that, although I think some people will, right? But I think this gives us a chance to slow down. It gives us a chance to look at, how do we do things differently? How do we connect in different ways? And reconnecting with people we haven't for a while. I got to say, though, this is me as a single person, right? The humour of this all, well, it's not really humour. It's going to make or break relationships, right? I heard the other day the divorce rate in China has skyrocketed. Well, because they were welded in, probably. So in China, in places, they welded people into their apartments because people weren't listening. And we don't want to go to that. We want people to start physical distancing. If you're not, like last night in my apartment complex, I saw people in the common room. I think there was only 7 of them, but they were sitting next to each other, like here, on the couch. And I'm like, well, you kind of defeated the purpose of what we're doing, right? Let me take a drink. And, you know, I see people, my young cousin or second cousin, my cousin's kid put something on Facebook last night going, and stay home, I'm not going to say it, I want to. You probably heard that anyway. But because she wants her 21st in September. And if we don't start like taking the physical distancing seriously, we are going to have those issues. And I don't know what government's going to do about it. I don't want them to take total control. And Charlotte, thanks for putting that up again. Social connectedness in spite of physical distancing. and being super creative about how we do that. And for me, being super humorous, like, you know, singing Lionel Richie's Hello to my little unicorn. Hello, is it me you're looking for? Yeah, see, I just sung on this. Oh my God. Yeah, Heather, yeah, your dad just dropping by and giving you a hug. You're like, no, stay away. And Andrea talking about the insanity of being home with the hubby and the 2 teenage girls. Yeah, I can't imagine that. I know I was talking with Charlotte, and her daughter was there the other day, and they her daughter's, the internet wasn't working, and her daughter was like, what are we going to do if the internet doesn't work? And I'm like, God, we've been remiss as a society to not arm people to be able to deal with if we don't have internet. Or imagine if something happened with our electricity for a while and we didn't have that. And totally, Andrea, social isolation does not equal emotional isolation. I keep talking about social and emotional connectedness and physical distancing. And I think I've talked with peer supporters about we've done a disservice to people who've used our services to a point too, because we created services that we said was people's only connection to others. So people would come into a drop-in centre and you know, some peer workers have said to me, that's people's only connection. And I've been saying, I don't know, for at least 15 years, why are we doing that? Why aren't we looking at how to support people into communities and meeting like people that maybe they like to chat to in those drop-in centres in the community, or like creating them so they're outside of that service? I get if people don't have a phone, that's all a tough ask, but we created dependence on our services. And like now we've got people who are stuck at home and we haven't armed them. So that I know of peer services that are getting like activity packs. I think they called them isolation packs or activity packs, where they're just throwing a bunch of stuff in, like crosswords and Sudoku and like books and like different stuff that people could get. And I'm looking at Andrea's comments about, you know, I'm depending on the internet. Yep. You know, and how much do you limit it? I know that most of the, I don't know if not all, of the internet providers have gone unlimited data through this. And, you know, I kind of sit here and go, if they can do unlimited data now, why can't it be like that all the time? And then, you know, Heather talking about, like, she really realised when the, like, internet went out, like, how super connected we are to it. And so I think, you know, talking to peer workers about some of the stuff we can do for ourselves in this and some of the stuff we can do in terms of supporting others is to get creative. And that is part of some of that silly little fit and fun for mental health I'm doing at 4 o'clock every day, which, like, I haven't really thought about the activity for today straight after this call because, damn it, I'm on this call. I better think quickly about what I want to do in this moment with that. And maybe you guys can help me set it up. I do have an idea. But it is those kind of things that is super important for us to kind of think about. And Jane, I can only see a tiny snippet for some reason. Seymour will not show on my phone. So I know what you mean. I had a busy life. I'm assuming it's something about having to slow down, and it's like I remember the term, right? Slow down and smell the roses or smell the flowers. Like, how many of us are forced into doing that now? I'm not talking about me because my life is hotted up. And I have to remember that I can actually take a break, that I'm not superhuman. So as like peer supporters in this environment, we also have to remember our job is not to save everyone. God, I need to take my own advice in that. Like, we have to take care of ourselves before we take care of everyone else. So truth be told, this morning I got up. I took my dog to the park for a walk because that's super good for me and her, because I realised since I've been home, I've been putting on weight. Well, I've put on weight the last few months, right? I've been, truth be told, I've been comfort eating, right? I broke up with my partner last year in September and then had like a lovely time with someone who was living in Calgary for a month or two. And truth be told, that woman is amazing. And I probably stopped that because I just didn't want to have to keep flying over there. I wanted to be home. And like I just started eating. And I do things like I'll start tomorrow. And I'd go to the grocery store, and I go, oh, I'm at the grocery store. I'll allow myself to buy like a big chocolate and ice cream, and I'll just have it today. And then I went to the store the next day and I go, oh, just today, I'm just giving myself a treat. And this week I actually had to sit down and go, this isn't working. This is not working for me. And I was overworking, either under or overeating, because I would also do things like not eat and not drink. And I actually have to be careful. I'm one of the high risk groups, right? I have a heart issue, and I realised statistically the other day I'm the group that 10% are the people who end up dying. 10% of people with cardiovascular issues who get COVID-19, unfortunately die. So now I'm like, okay, I actually want to be a little healthier than having chocolate. I want to do a little more exercise. I want to be very careful about physical distancing. And I want to take care of myself. So, Heather, I see you wrote about if you can only save one person on this planet, it's okay if it's yourself. It's okay to not be everything to every single person. It's okay not to save the world. And I was chatting with my mum the other day, and she reminded me that when I was little, I said that I wanted to change the life of one person. And I know in the time I've been involved in peer support, I know I've changed the lives of thousands of people. And that is such a humbling experience. But I also realise that it's been at the expense of me at times. I travel a lot for work, or was, not now. And I would get into relationships and people would be upset because I would be spending so much time traveling, or so much time trying to engage with people, or offering my phone number and offering, call me, do this, do that. And then I'd break up and I'd be like, ugh. And I thought about it recently before this happened, but it's impacted even more now, is I've spent my life giving to others, but at the expense of me, because I'm sitting here alone talking to you guys, and I'm not alone because I'm connecting with you, but physically alone, when there are times I just want someone to give me a hug and just not tell me it's going to be okay, but just be there. And I know I will get through this, and I know I don't know, but I know that each moment I'm going to do my bit to get through it. And I'm sitting here going, I get to create every day something that works for me. And as I move forward, and as we get move through whatever this looks like, and we get to create every moment who we are in that. And we get to create what we want for the future. We don't know what it's going to look like, but we get to create with that. And I see the conversation just popping up about peer support being as an essential service, and we're not taken seriously. I do have to say, I was chatting with Susan Dobson from the Craftsman Centre this morning. They have been deemed an essential service. I know that Channel in Newfoundland is either has been or is going to be deemed an essential service. That came out after Snowmageddon for them in January, when they had that massive snowfall and people were like snowed in and like caught up in all of that. They went back and asked to be an essential service. So we do have the ability to stand up and say we are an essential service, and we are. And so my request of people, and do I have a right to request this? No. Am I going to anyway? Yes. Is be in those conversations with the media, be in the conversations with the legislators, the representatives, the politicians, whatever you call them, and talk it up about peer support. I see someone talking about talked me off the ledge at the conference in Toronto, and I can't kind of see the whole, I don't know, it's just not letting me open it. Like, we have the ability to be that amazing for people. And I'm glad you got talked off the ledge and you're still here. And to be, and the gift that we have with that, the gift to be in conversation. I know I shared in some of the peer support calls this week with peer supporters that just recently someone reached out to me and said, I'm going to jump. I'm jumping now. And it was on Messenger. And I'm like, will you talk to me? No. So, for 45 minutes, it was the conversation via Messenger. And here's what I keep saying to peer supporters. Be passionately curious in the conversations that we have with people. Continue to find out who they are, what's happening for them, how they're feeling. Be in those conversations, because that's all I did, right? I didn't know where she was. She didn't tell me, right? So it's not like I could call someone and say, go and help her, right? So we had a 45-minute back and forward. I just kept engaging, kept chatting. And I asked her the question, do you really want to die? Or is it just that you want the pain to stop? And she's like, in capitals, dead now, dead now, dead now. And so it is our ability to be passionately curious and be in those conversations that allows us to support people through this in whatever way that we can, right? Because I feel like I'm a pretty good peer supporter, but was I scared in that moment? Yeah. Was I trying to think of everything I could do to engage in that conversation? Yeah. So 45 minutes back and forward on text, right? Messenger, texting. And then she went silent and I was like, God, I don't know. And then she came back another 45 minutes, a couple of hours later. And over the next few days we had those. I'm happy to say she's still there, still hanging in. And as peer supporters, we get to have those conversations with people. And it's humbling and it's a privilege. And there has never been a time where peer support is more important. So, if you're at the grocery store, chat with people. If you're walking at the dog park, or you're just going for a walk and you see your neighbour, or you see someone randomly on the street, have a chat. If you're doing virtual peer support for people, on Zoom, on whatever platform, on phone, text, voice, through a window, just be you. Remember the peer support values. Talk about being authentic. And being authentic for me is sharing my vulnerability, sharing that I get scared at times, sharing that I'm sad at times, sharing that I wish like hell there was a partner in my life to share this journey right now. And there isn't, but I do get to share with all of you guys. And that was part of the reason I'm looking, I have to end this in 4 minutes because I've got to go into the fit and fun for mental health for 5 minutes. So, or maybe I'll just stay on this call. I don't know. No, I'll do the quickie. A quickie, that sounded funny. That's my quickie, 5 minute fit and fun for mental health. But I know as we journey through this, part of the reason why Charlotte and I put these things on, like the free peer supporter call. So Charlotte, I don't know if you can pop in the box. There's one on Monday, one on Wednesday night, one on Friday afternoon, is to say to people, join us in conversations about how we support ourselves as peer supporters as we do our role. As I said, we had pilots, we had 911 callers, we had healthcare providers, we had people doing peer support in inpatient, doing it virtually, because the conversation about how do we do that virtually has been coming up. And I keep saying we use exactly the same skills. It's not a different skill set. The only skill set is if we're on the phone, we can't see people, but listen for the tone of people's voices. And use all the skills. Check in with, did I actually hear what you were saying right? Do those things. And look, Charlotte's amazing too. I could not do this without Charlotte because she's in the background talking it up. If you know parents of kids with mental health issues, Charlotte's the guru on that. Check out our website for those family peer support freebie calls too. Because sometimes as peer supporters of individuals, we forget that families need their own peer support. Families need their own ability to think about recovery and hope. Their own recovery, not the recovery of the person that they're supporting, or families, whether it's a child or an adult, they need their own space to have their discussions and say what they need to. Just as we need to vent about our experiences, families do too. I'm very clear the two have similarities and differences, and that's why we want to train individual peer workers and we want to train family peer workers. So, and we want to support you guys to be able to do what you do well, whether you're a volunteer peer supporter, whether you're a paid peer supporter, whether you're just someone in the community who wants to be. Let's start connecting. So I want to thank you all for being on this. I have to pop off and go to my next Fit and Fun Mental Health. So stay on Facebook and you'll get connected with me again in a second. Thank you. Love you all.